like I said, when we were doing mutual aid last weekend, many people that we encountered were boomers. It is immensely heartbreaking to see. Imagine seeing your mama out there homeless. Imagine seeing your daddy out there begging for food. Imagine seeing your grandma go through the trash for food. This is the reality in America due to capitalism. Please check on your parents and grandparents. Many of them are not okay. But here's the thing, a lot of them won't say anything because either pride or they don't want you to worry, because throughout their lives they focus so much on taking care of you for so long. Of course, some didn't have that reality, but that's a whole other conversation. But think about how some of them do not even want to worry you. Check on your parents, check on your grandparents. Because some of them are suffering in silence and they won't say a word. And this is why the system needs to change. This is why we do mutual aid. So, my mother is a baby boomer. And a lot of baby boomers get the tag of, well, you guys are boomers, you guys ruin everything, you guys ruin the economy, things like that. But it kind of goes without saying that it's not all boomers, right? Not all boomers, not all people who are of that age were part of the ruining of the economy. You kind of have to blame some of their parents and grandparents too, because they are the predecessors to what has happened. Because of the system, because of capitalism, your mom and dad are at risk of being homeless. That's not hyperbole. This is the reality of many of us Gen X and millennials right now. We are barely able to take care of ourselves, let alone our own parents. And our own parents are coming to terms with the unaffordable living conditions in their golden years, with the specter of poverty looming over their shoulder. So why do I say this? So there's an article that came out recently that I actually want to give attention to. And let me go here. And this article came across my view. And sadly, I wasn't surprised. So let me share my screen. So this is out of Yahoo Finance. It says, unconscionable. Baby boomers are becoming homeless at a rate not seen since the Great Depression. Here's what's driving this terrible trend. So, it says, many baby boomers across the country are now coming to terms with a hard reality that working for your entire adult life is no longer enough to guarantee you'll have a roof over your head in your later years. Thanks in part to a series of recessions, a high housing cost, and a shortage of affordable housing, older adults are now the fastest growing segment of America's homeless population, according to a report from the Wall Street Journal, based on data from the Department of Housing and Urban Development. It continues, says, quote, the fact that we are seeing elderly homelessness is something that we have not seen since the Great Depression. This is from the University of Pennsylvania social policy professor Dennis Colhane. Here's what has triggered some of the experts calling a silver tsunami and what they say needs to change to reverse the tide. It says baby boomers are increasingly becoming homeless. Dr. Margot Kuchel, a professor of medicine and director of the Center for Vulnerable Populations and Benioff Homelessness and Housing Initiative at the University of California, San Francisco, studies homelessness through a lens of its health impacts, and Kuchel's research shows that there's an escalating rate of homelessness among older Americans. In a 2020 article for the American Society on Aging, Kuchel wrote that all the homeless single adults in the early 1990s, 11 were aged 50 and older. By 2003, she says the percentage grew to 37%. So as we can see here, this is part of the risk that I was speaking about. It's the fact that you have all these people who are older that have saved. A lot of them, they worked the same job for 25, 30 years. They got their pensions. Remember those? Remember pensions? I remember when people who were training me when I was going to a magnet high school said, oh, well, you can get a nice pension plan or a 401k. But he was emphasizing pension plans. This is when I was 17 years old. This is when I was a senior. This is over 20 years ago. Yeah, I know it looked good. Over 20 years ago, he was saying, well, you can get a pension plan. And he basically explained what a pension plan was. And I was like, okay, that sounds great. So then I'll be set up for retirement if I start saving now, especially since I was going to school for culinary arts, commercial foods and culinary arts. And he told me that all I need to do is start saving now, and I can have a nice little nest egg by the time I'm 55, 60, and I could probably retire by the time I'm 60 and 65 from my career. And a lot of people who are boomers were even told that by the time they graduated around between 1965 to 1970-ish, a lot of boomers were told that. And they got jobs. And when they got those jobs, they got those pension plans, and they were told, stick with the job. No matter how hard it gets, stick with it. And then by the time you hit 65, if you stick with the same company, you'll be good. And a lot of them did that. Some of boomers didn't fare as well, like my mother, right? But they thought, well, I should be okay because I'll get that and my Social Security check. Until they realized that the rich kept getting richer. And that money that you saved up just ain't cutting it. So let's continue. Says now the over 50 demographic represents half of the homeless single adults in the United States, with no sign in their numbers slowing, leaving baby boomers, those aged 57 to 75, particularly vulnerable. Elderly homelessness has been rare with the contemporary homeless problem. Within this contemporary homeless problem, we've always had very few people over 60 who have been homeless historically. But in recent years, Colhane says that has changed. Older Americans, he says, are now arguably the fastest rising group. Are any of you surprised about this? Here's what changed. After living through multiple recessions, leaving some of them with little savings, aging boomers are now contending with insufficient affordable housing. So just so that we know, what happened in 2008? Actually, let's go even before that. What happened back in 2000, right? 1999, 2000 dot-com bubble burst. So we had a mini recession there. So we had recession in the 80s, but even before that, right? Right when they were starting their families, right when some boomers were starting their families, they had little kids, they probably started putting some money in their nest egg, things like that around the 80s. Guess what? Recession, boom, happened. Then guess what happened? Then you had the 90s. And by the time Bill Clinton became president from, what was it, 92? Yeah, from 92 to 2000, those were the good years, right? For some of y'all, it was the good years. But for people like me and my family, they were not that good. They were all right. But for some of us, they were the good years. And people got to make more money. There wasn't any massive wars going on. There was conflicts that Bill Clinton was sending troops into, right? Wasn't anything super huge. But a lot of people look back at the 90s now and say, well, the 90s were actually pretty good, right? Music, culture, movies, classics, right? But then that bubble, that dot-com bubble burst. And that put a little bit of pain in the economy, but it was okay. Then 9/11 happened. I remember distinctly when 9/11 happened because I was starting my senior year in high school. Then the wars. Then I remember distinctly back in 2007, I was living with my roommate. And we were kind of keen on the news. One of the things that we saw was that Citigroup lost $19 billion. I said, how in the hell can Citigroup lose $19 billion? $19 billion. What happened? It got worse. Hank Paulson came on the news, said that something's wrong. Remember Hank Paulson? He sounded like this. Brother needed his homeboy sounded like he needed a lozenge. But anywho, so that's what happened. And then the crisis happened. 777 points. Stock market tanked. People were freaking out, especially people who had 401ks. Because remember, they got rid of pension plans because companies didn't want to pay. So a lot of boomers had 401ks. And because those 401ks, that money is invested in the stock market, guess what? When that crash happened, all that money they accumulated, right, back in the 90s, guess what? Wiped out. Out. So a lot of boomers were stuck like Chuck in the muck without no luck with a duck. Why? Because they actually had their money invested, their retirement. And a lot of these boomers were reaching the end of their careers. So it's no wonder that now they don't have that much money in their nest egg. And you combine that with inflation, hyperinflation that we're seeing right now, which is also known as price gouging, corporate price gouging. And many of them are at their wits' end. They're becoming homeless. They can't afford to survive. And so this is what we see going on right now. It was a perfect storm. A Reaganomics storm that continuously happened. That now puts your mom and dad, my mom, my dad, everybody's mama and daddy, and some of you, your grandparents, at risk. So that's how it happened. That's what happened with the reality for a lot of people. Never mind the fact that black wealth tanked under Barack Obama because he decided to bail out the banks. And how many black people who are boomers lost their homes due to foreclosure because of the subprime mortgage crisis? How many black people lost homes? On top of a lot of white people who did too. So that wealth that they had wiped away. Poof, gone. Let's continue the article. So, after living through multiple recessions, leaving some of them with little savings, aging boomers are now contending with insufficient affordable housing. Low-cost assisted living centers are extremely limited, with labor shortages, inflation, and reduced funding putting facilities at risk of closing. Assisted living facilities are not cheap at all. And then on top of it, the fact is that a lot of these assisted living facilities do not pay a living wage, a true living wage, to the people who actually work there, who help take care of your mama and your daddy, your grandma and your grandpa. They do not pay these people enough to take care of them well. So now they have shortages. And now things are becoming more expensive. So assisted living facilities, they now have to charge more. By the way, the amount that people who are getting Social Security retirement are making is insufficient. And I'll get to that in a second. So no wonder a lot of elderly people, particularly boomers, are seeing a rise in homelessness. And it says, and even rent is becoming increasingly out of reach in certain areas like Massachusetts, New York, and Florida, my state. Oh, we're going to get into this, baby. Because what's going on here, and by the way, just to let you guys know, the elderly population in Florida is massive. Massive. Excuse me. Ironic that I coughed. During the COVID-19 pandemic, Florida resident Judy Schroeder told Wall Street Journal that the apartment building she was living in was sold to a new owner, raising her monthly rent by more than $500. Schroeder lost her part-time job, leaving her living off of Social Security alone and couch surfing for months before she finally found a place in late August. She said, I never thought at 71 years old that I would be in this position. It says researchers at UCSF told Wall Street Journal about half the homeless older adults in places like Oakland, California, and New York become unhoused for the first time after their 50th birthday. And wait, hold on. Imagine that. You work your entire life, and then you reach your 50th birthday, and you think you did okay. You did all the things you were supposed to do, right? But then after 50, you find that things are becoming very difficult for you financially. You're noticing the squeeze happening around you. And then you become homeless? What do you do? What type of actions can you take? Why are you going through this? You made all the right choices. You went to a community college. You took a trade. You bought a home. Some of you. You did all the right things. And then after 50, you become homeless? Something's wrong here. Something's very wrong. says these individuals pointed to a major event like the death of a spouse or a medical emergency as the trigger. Losing a spouse is devastating because that's a whole income that you lose. That's for some people, that's 50%, maybe even more. It's a huge chunk of income that you no longer have when a loved one dies, especially if you have a spouse, and especially if they're working, right? Not counting sicknesses. And as you get older, you're more susceptible to these things, right? So, death of a spouse, medical emergency, they fell on hard times. Quote, is entirely different population, says Cushell. These are people who worked their whole lives. They had typical lives, often working physically demanding jobs, and never made enough to put money away. This happens to a lot of boomers. They just didn't have enough. That's the way it was. That's the way it goes. Now, they say expanding the supply of affordable housing and availability of rental assistance programs, eviction protections, and renters' rights could be key to preventing homelessness. Says some cities like San Diego have piloted programs to provide rental subsidies for a limited time to older, low-income adults to help them find their feet. There's also a matter of income. As advocates point out that the federal minimum wage is $7.25 an hour, has failed to keep up with inflation. And while most states supplement federal programs like Supplemental Security Income, SSI, and Social Security Disability Insurance, like what I get, Cushell believes increasing SSI or state supplements could make the difference for older adults and those with disabilities struggling to afford housing. In a country as wealthy as the United States, homelessness for anyone, particularly older adults, is unconscionable. And here's the key. We have the means to end homelessness in older adults by increasing affordable housing for older adults, engaging in targeted prevention efforts. Why do they have to be targeted? Why would not we just do wide sweeping prevention efforts? It's just weird to me. It's like targeted. No, we can do wide sweeping. We can do universal, but that's whatever. That's my opinion. And building off the success of permanent supportive housing, we can make homelessness for older adults rare and brief. We should make it non-existent, in my opinion. Homelessness should be a distant, bitter memory. It should be a thing of the past. And yet, it's here and it's growing. Now, here's another variable that some people have not thought about, but I think is important. Imagine being too old to be hired. Many places don't want to hire older people because they want productivity to be higher. And now you're older, but you can't afford to live in a particular pace because the money you saved, even if you manage to save anything at all, has dwindled quicker than you expected because of inflation, also called corporate price gouging. So let me share with you guys the average monthly benefits to elderly people who are in Social Security. Now, what do you think the average monthly income is without looking it up? Just go ahead and put it in the chat. What do you think? Average monthly income. Is it 4,000? 3,500, 3,000, 2,500? What do you think? How much? Per month, by the way, per month. So Purple Philosophy says 28,000, which give or take, monthly, I'm sorry. Sean Miller says 3.4K. Give him the boot says 1K. Now, let me share. Let me show you something. Let me see. Matthew says 2.2K. Okay. Let me share it with you guys. Hang on. And then Osito says 2.5K. 2,500. Purple Philosophy says, okay. So let me share. This is from Yahoo Finance. According to the Social Security Administration, the average monthly retirement benefit for Social Security recipients is $1,781.63 as of February. Several factors can drag that average up or down, but you have the most control over the biggest variable of all, the age that you decide to cash in. $1,781.63. So, most of you were off by about $1,000 per month. And these are elderly people. So is it any wonder at all that your mama and daddy and my mama and daddy and everybody's mama and daddy that are boomers are feeling the pinch now? Especially a lot of them that either don't get a pension or get very small pensions, or those of them that did have a significant 401k, but it got wiped out by multiple recessions over the last 30 years. Any wonder? So that's what's going on. It says you become eligible for Social Security at age 62, but you can receive a reduced monthly payment by claiming benefits before your full retirement age, which varies by the date of your birth. Now, that's what's going on. But what if you don't own a home? Like I said, in 2008, a lot of people, especially a lot of boomers, they lost their homes during the subprime mortgage housing crisis, or they lost their jobs and they couldn't afford their homes, so they went into foreclosure. So what happened? What happens to those who they have to rent now? Well, I've shared this before and I'll share it again. Those of you who rent, y'all know exactly what time it is. And we're going to go there. So, let's start in Florida, right? Very high elderly population. A lot of older people move here to Florida, right? And remember, we said there was a little over $1,700 per month that the average Social Security retirement recipient receives, right? $1,700. Keep that number inside your head, right? Okay. So here is out of reach. In Florida, you need to make $30.59 per hour. It's number 11 in the highest cost of living in the country, right? But I want to direct your attention to this graph way in the corner. Right here in the corner, right? So, let me see if I can, boom. All right. 2-bedroom. In order to afford a 2-bedroom, you need to make $1,951 per month in Florida to afford a 2-bedroom. I'm sorry, the average 2-bedroom cost, is $1,591. Remember what I said? The average Social Security check is $1,700. If they want a 2-bedroom, they have to pay $1,500 alone. If you get a 1-bedroom, that's $1,312 per month. That leaves you with about $400 or so for food, utilities, transportation, medical care. Because by the way, if you're elderly and you get Medicare or you get Medicaid, you also have to pay. Medicare only pays 80%. Medicare does not pay 100% of your medical costs. So you are also stuck with that 20%. And when you're older, you're constantly going to the doctor. Also, never mind medications. And it's very difficult, especially if you're elderly, if you have to take public transportation. So you kind of need a car, especially in Florida. So, looking at this, can you see why? Can you see why a lot of them can't afford to live? Also, let me see. Man, this thing is, can I put this thing away? Okay. It says rent affordable at 30% of annual, I don't know what AMI stands for. Sorry about that. Rent affordable to an SSI recipient, $274. Meaning, if you get supplemental security income, the only amount of rent you can afford, the actual amount of rent you can actually afford is $274. See? Look at that. So when we talk about, and then on top of it, you're not talking about toiletries. Make sure you have, things to keep yourself up. So yes, this is one of the reasons why. Let's go to a different state, right? We can go to a different one. Let's just pick New Jersey. Number 7. Right? You have to make, so typical 2-bedroom in New Jersey, $1,742. Typical 1-bedroom is $1,448 a month. So that's in New Jersey. Remember that $1,700, but keep that in your head, right? That's New Jersey. Let's go to Arizona. 2-bedroom, $1,556. Even if you wanted to do a 1-bedroom at $1,287, if you're elderly and you're just getting Social Security retirement, that leaves only $500. How much is your typical utility bill? I know I live in a 2-bedroom and my mother lives with me, and our utility bill is just $250 a month plus. Some people, their utility bills is even higher. And we don't run things like everybody else. We don't even run our dishwasher. Last time we ran our dishwasher was probably about 3-4 years ago. We wash our dishes by hand. And we have to pay for water. And let me do one more. Let me see. Let's go West Coast. Let's go Oregon. So in Oregon, two-bedroom, $1,545. 1-bedroom is $1,291. So is there any reason why that is difficult? Is anybody asking now why it's so difficult for even boomers to afford to live in this country. They're not okay. Your mom and your dad, your grandma and your grandpa, they're not okay. Your auntie and your uncle, they're not doing okay. I find it funny how a lot of times when people become homeless, people will blame drugs or mental health issues on homelessness, when in reality, they may even be doing drugs because they're housing insecure or homeless. But even still, that's no reason for them to be homeless, to just say, oh, you should still be homeless. And by the way, that's not the reality for probably most people who are homeless. Fact is that their mental health is worse because they're homeless. I'm gonna share this tweet by Professor Anthony Zinkus, because I think this needs to be harped on, because a lot of people do not think about this. And a lot of people don't regard this, because I think that you have some people who judge, right? They judge pretty harshly. Let me enlarge this so everybody can see. Professor Anthony Zinkus says people aren't homeless because they do drugs. People do drugs because they're homeless. Because of what you're going through, that trauma exacerbates the need to self-medicate, because you're dealing with so much. That trauma exacerbates poor mental health. If you really want to alleviate the illicit drug use, if you want to alleviate the mental health issues of people, then wouldn't it be better to alleviate the trauma that can cause or build up to that? Like getting rid of homelessness, getting rid of poverty. Those are the gateway drugs. People do not think about it that way, but poverty, homelessness, housing insecurity, food insecurity, these things are the gateway drugs. And this is what happens. And people wonder, like, why are these people becoming addicted to drugs? Check the past. Check your past. A lot of people don't think about that. I think it's important that we need to keep that in mind. I have a video that I'm going to share. I hope I don't get a copyright claim on this. But you never know, because, you know, these people they'll claim anything these days. But I want to go to this video. And it's going to be heartbreaking. But this is necessary because people need to see the human aspect of homelessness, especially among our elderly population. Let's go.
New research shows the number of people 65 and older experiencing homelessness will triple by 2030.
And Keitha Nelson is on your side tonight, digging deeper into what experts call the crisis of age.
Homelessness is a scary situation for anyone to even imagine. This age group, 55 plus baby boomers, they have additional concerns. Some have health or mobility problems emergency shelters are not equipped to handle. And they occupy two of the riskiest categories for heat-related illness, being older and unhoused. But an expert in the field tells me there is hope and this problem can be solved. We took our cameras inside of Jim Paris's car. For 2.5 years, he called this space home.
You know, I'm glad I have the car, but every time I get in it, it brings me back there. And it's not good.
From the outside looking in, homelessness for many of us seems like a them problem.
I want you guys to take a close look at those camps. Now, when I did mutual aid with the RBN mutual aid chapter here in Orlando last weekend, we came across a camp similar to this. I can't tell you how many people who were boomers that I encountered while I was out there giving away care packages. Look, here's the human impact. This is somebody's daddy. This is somebody's dad, man. You see some of those women out there, that's somebody's mama. That's somebody's auntie. That's somebody's grandma, grandpa. And the fact is, they're going through this. And you know what the really horrible part about it is? A lot of us Gen X and millennials and Gen Z, we can't even help our own parents because we can barely take care of us. We can't even take care of ourselves. Because price gouging, up the yin-yang from these corporate dictators constantly. A lot of us don't even have cars. How many millennials have cars anymore? Some of us don't even have that. We're working 2, 3, and 4 jobs just to be able to live. And we're sitting here with our hearts broken because our moms and dads and grandmas and grandpas are either at risk of becoming homeless or they're homeless already. And becoming older with your health failing, think about how much stress that is on your mind and heart. On top of also your health failing because of age. You don't think that exacerbates that? That exacerbates, that intensifies what they're going through on top of getting older. And people say, well, all you got to do is pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Many of them did. This gentleman did. What do you say to him? Do you say, well, you just didn't pull him up enough? What kind of sick person says that? Let's continue. It gets deeper.
That's not good.
From the outside looking in, homelessness for many of us seems like a them problem, like it could never happen to us.
I used to see homeless people and I would think, good God, you know, I could never be there, but, you know, it wouldn't take much to make it happen. And then it happened.
Paris was.
You are further from homelessness. Most of us are closer to homelessness than anyone. Like a Harlan Crow, a Jeff Bezos, or a Mortimer Buckley. And those people are billionaires. A millionaire is closer to homelessness than a billionaire. All of you who are making 6 figures, you're one sickness, one tragedy away from being where they're at. Some of us have already been where they were. I have. I know what it's like to be homeless as a child and an adult. My mom knows what it's like to be homeless. My brothers do. A lot of people know what it's like. But it hurts when the person who took care of you and looked out for you your entire life, now they're in that position. And what hurts even more is that you can't even afford to return the favor. Even if you want to, you can't afford to do it. How's that gonna feel? It's gonna feel horrible. It's deep in your heart that you can't even return the favor to your mom or dad. That you can't even help take care of them because you can't even barely do the same for yourself.
Was a part of a group quickly becoming the largest portion of our nation's homeless population. He's a baby boomer.
The largest group remains those who are 18 to 45, but the fastest growing percentage population is 55 and older.
And Dawn Gilman says it's moving into 65 and older. She runs Changing Homelessness. A recent survey of the homeless population in Duval, Nassau, and Clay counties shows the number of people 55 and older increased by 6% in just 6 months.
So, I want to take a look at this. January, 25% of 55 plus. And in July, 31% of homeless people are over 55. Horrible, horrible.
In just 6 months.
I went from owning my own company for 7 years. I worked on access control.
Life, he says, led to other jobs not making quite enough to get by.
I didn't have enough money to put a down payment on an apartment or anything, and I resorted to living on the streets.
He did all the right things. He owned his own business. Right? Isn't that the American dream? Own your own business, make your own money. But then what did he say? He said that they didn't pay enough at the jobs. So this goes into a living wage aspect, right? But if they don't pay you enough money, then guess what? Can you live? But then there are some people going to go, well, that's your own fault. You didn't get enough training. You didn't go to college. A lot of boomers did.
I would use the restroom facilities at the park, which of course didn't have any showers, but I was able to clean up, wash up in the sinks, and use the restroom facilities.
Confined physically and mentally, health problems crept in, along with depression.
You know, the worst case scenario, of course, is suicide. And anytime any slight thought of that would creep into my head, all I had to do was think of my daughter. I could never do that to her.
Reflecting on a different time in his life.
I mentioned to you that I had my own company for 7 years. And the reason I did that was to be able to spend more time with my daughter.
We all need something or someone to help us out. For Jim Paris, it was his daughter and Changing Homelessness. The agency.
So, look. Like I said, when we were doing mutual aid last weekend, many people that we encountered were boomers. It is immensely heartbreaking to see. Imagine seeing your mama out there homeless. Imagine seeing your daddy out there begging for food. Imagine seeing your grandma go through the trash for food. This is the reality in America due to capitalism. Please check on your parents and grandparents. Many of them are not okay. But here's the thing. A lot of them won't say anything because either pride or they don't want you to worry, because throughout their lives, they focus so much on taking care of you for so long. Of course, Some didn't have that reality, but that's a whole other conversation. But think about how some of them do not even want to worry you. Check on your parents, check on your grandparents. Because some of them are suffering in silence and they won't say a word. And this is why the system needs to change. This is why we do mutual aid. Think about this. Last week, we were giving care packages to somebody's mama and daddy. That's what we were doing. That's why this is important. That's why the story was so important. Mutual aid means looking out for the elderly among us.